Welcome to TFP, the Theater Folk Podcast. I am Lindsay Price, resident playwright for Theater Folk. Hello, I hope you're well. Thanks for listening. Today, Craig and I continue our conversation on the shows we saw in England and a totally unique theatrical experience. But first, let's do some Theater Folk news. So next week, from June 25th to the 29th, Craig and I are going to be at the International Thespian Festival in Lincoln, Nebraska. We've been going to this festival with Theater Folk since 2004, which means, 9 years, 10 years? Oh, isn't that a long time? And that's not actually counting the 3 years in the 90s that Craig and I were workshop leaders at the festival before Theater Folk even existed. The International Thespian Festival is a pretty amazing experience for any high school student. Your days are jam-packed with seeing huge shows that had to be adjudicated to make it to the main stage. I once saw a production of Jesus Christ Superstar with 8 follow spots. And the very, very first year that Craig and I went, we saw a production of The Pirates of Penzance that had a life-sized pirate ship, with pirates, with singing, with cannons going. It was just amazing. And then on top of that, you can fill your afternoons with one acts. There are 3 hours of workshops every afternoon in every possible theatrical field you can imagine. I teach playwriting there, and I love it because the students who come to my class want to be there. They love theater. They want to write, and it's fun to teach people who want to be there and who love theater and who have a passion for theater. And also you can it's like a one-stop shop. You can talk to people from different universities. You can buy plays. It's a total immersion into theater world. It's a really wonderful week. And the reason I'm going on and on about it is that we here at Theater Folk headquarters, we have a little secret that we are going to be doing next week. We're going to have a secret daily password while we're at the festival. And if you come up to our table and you tell us the daily password, you get a free play. I know, isn't that exciting? And the plays we're giving away, they're all brand new. They're all fresh off the presses. None of them are in our catalog yet. And so how do you find out about this password, you're asking? How can I get myself a free new play? Well, it's going to be posted daily on the Theater Folk Facebook page. So if you haven't become a fan or like Theater Folk on Facebook and you're going to be in Lincoln, now would be a great time to check us out. And joining us up on Facebook is a good thing to do anyway, because we do lots of free stuff over there. We're coming up to the end of the month, which is Free Play Sunday, which is also posted on our Facebook page. Lastly, where can you find this podcast? We post new episodes every Wednesday at theaterfolk.com, on that Facebook page, and on Twitter. You can find us on the Stitcher app, and you can subscribe to TFP on iTunes. All you have to do is search on the word Theater Folk. Episode 46. Is community theater viable? And I'm not really talking here about what we know as community theater, which has sort of been co-opted to mean amateur. I'm talking about what I think the true sense of the word is, which is to bring a group of people together, to bring a community together to make art. And that's the show we're talking about today. It's a show we saw when we were in Cornwall, in Truro. It's about a Cornwall legend, Giant Bolster. And it was really one of the most unique and joyful, interesting community pieces of artistic works I have ever seen. And it was a total one-off. We just happened to be there for the night. We were lucky enough to have this experience. And that's another thing that I think theater truly is, it's that one time that you're in the theater where something hopefully magical happens. So let's get to it. We have been in Cornwall for 3 days, and it's been absolutely lovely, hasn't it?
I love Cornwall, and I don't think I'm ever going to weigh the same after having been here.
So today we are talking about, I would call what we saw last night a singular experience, right?
Yeah, it was a one-off show that has never happened before, and you will never see again.
And we'll never again, and we'll never see. I don't think you'd see it we'd never see the likes of it in North America.
I don't think so.
And so what we saw is a program called Giant Bolster, The Legend Continues. And Giant Bolster is a Cornish myth. And it is about a guy who is basically a mean giant.
Yeah, he would be like the mean version of Paul Bunyan.
Yeah, that's a good
like every
comparison.
place has like these boogeymen type legends, you know? And so this particular one, he was known for eating the farmers' cows, eating children at random, and he basically was terrorizing the town.
And he had a wife who seemed to be doomed to. The puppet version of her had this humongous rock that she sort of seemed to be her burden to bear.
Yeah.
It was a physicalization of her burden to bear. And so this guy, he falls in love with a maiden.
Named Agnes.
And we were actually I think she becomes a saint.
Yes, she's Saint Agnes.
She's Saint Agnes.
Yes.
And so he falls in love with her, and the town tries to get rid of this ogre, and the town fails, and a knight is brought in, and the knight fails, and finally it's this girl who
he falls in love with.
Who he falls in love with, and she gives him a task, and this task is quite gruesome, and he ends up dying.
Yes. Well, we can say what the task is.
Oh, sure. I was going to.
Okay.
Okay. So the task is that she asks him to fill a hole with his blood. And what Bolster doesn't know is that there is a leak in the hole in the rock. I guess it's a hole in the rock.
I imagine that the whole legend is based around that particular rock formation. I think it's probably a real place.
Probably.
Yeah.
Anyway, and he bleeds out. And everybody is happy because the town is free. Okay, so that's the legend. And what we saw was this was an educational experience. This was a community experience. Mm-hmm. This was dance, opera,
ballet. It was described. See, we had no idea what we were booking into when we got the tickets for this, like months ago. It was described as like a theater ballet opera based on a local legend. So we thought we're in, and we knew it was a community project, but we had no idea what we were getting. And I think even as we went in, we weren't even sure how long we would stay because who knows what was going to happen.
So the first thing that we see when we walk, first of all, it's a lovely little theater, and it is a really good turnout, and it is really a representation of the community. It was young kids, all the way up to grandparents, and because there were schools involved, I'm sure a lot of them were
parents
and
moms
families,
and dads, aunts and uncles.
But so what? A really good turnout.
Yeah, and there was like all like socio-economic too.
Yeah.
Rich, poor, old, young. It was a true community experience.
So the first thing that happened was an overture. The concert Cornish Symphonia played something called the Mouse Hole Cat Overture, and there is a fishing village in Cornwall
called Mouse Hole.
Mouse Hole. And what did you think about the overture, Craig?
I loved it. Actually, what I thought we didn't read the program before it started. I thought we were just seeing an overture to the play that we were about to see. But I thought it was absolutely beautiful. The orchestra was incredibly talented this is a community orchestra, I think.
I think so too.
Yeah. I don't think it's not like a big professional, big city orchestra. No. And they were just beautiful performers, and it was just a lovely, for me, it encapsulated in music all that I felt as we traveled throughout Cornwall. You know, that the dramatic vistas, the quiet fields,
the sweet people, the both just it's rugged and it's basic, and I mean that as a compliment. Yeah. I mean that as it's not fussy. or pretentious. You're right. It was in music exactly what we've seen.
I think so.
So then the next bit was a community education project. And what happened is that there were a number of schools. They were from 1, 2, 3, 4 different primary schools. And I'm going to say that the age ranges from, say, 7 to 10.
Something like that.
And each school was given the myth, the legend of the Giant Bolster. They had to use that as their base. And then they each were given the same question. How can music help to convey, invoke a sense of atmosphere, or define a character? And
this part was amazing.
It was really everything that we believe theater should be.
Mm-hmm. It was basically 4 different character sketches, like 4 different, like almost like tone poems on the theme of the Giant Bolster legend. They weren't really necessarily like a full narrative with beginning, middle, and end. They were like little, how would you describe them? Yeah, moments brought to life on stage. With music and movement.
With music and movement and text. And I have to say, what I loved that they went this way and that there was a lot of abstractness. I think that a lot of the issues that elementary theater has is that it tries so hard to be narrative. Mm-hmm. And there's a narrator and we're going to tell you a story and we're going to follow along the story. Well, what if it wasn't? What if you went in the total opposite direction and you were abstract and you just tried to paint pictures with words or with music.
There was a lot of tableau work. There was a lot of sound. There was
and it was very clear. These were not schools for the arts. These were regular. They looked like regular kids, and they moved like regular kids.
Yeah,
do.
and not like. Yeah, they weren't all theater school trained kids. There was like every kid was looking into the audience to see where mom was.
But I'll tell you this for nothing. The other thing I really enjoyed about this is it was very clear, and I don't know if it was that's just the way they are, or I don't know if this is the way that the teachers taught this particular section, but it was very clearly student leader driven. Mm-hmm. A lot of the stuff had groups, and each group there was a clear student leader, and the teachers, they stayed off to the side.
Mm-hmm. There was no coaching from the teachers.
There was no coaching. There was nothing. And if a mistake went on, as it did in more than one occasion, something went awry. It was the students who, they rallied around each other, they looked to each other, and the teacher did not step in and try and solve the problem.
Yeah, that was fascinating.
As a lover of theater, I just love that happened, and that it just sort of, and then it was its own.
And that the adults let it happen, too.
And the adults let it happen, and it was its own organic thing. It wasn't perfect, but my goodness, it was perfect.
Mm-hmm. I loved it.
And the other thing that I think was really interesting was that then, add to that, though, I mean, these are 7 to 10-year-olds. It was very clear that in some places there was a very strong musical cue that they all had to follow. There was one section where I think in this case it was a teacher that in the movement section, every time she hit a drum, a beat on the drum, they knew
what they were supposed to do.
They were supposed to go to the next thing, and I quite liked that. I thought that was a really instead of narration. Mm-hmm. I just find it was very inspiring, actually, this little bit, and made me think about how can we do something at the primary level. No, we don't really go into the primary level, but at the middle school level that is abstract and based on how do we make how do we do a character sketch, but then let them do all the work. Mm-hmm. It was really inspiring. It was
I was crying.
It was just a absolutely wonderful project. It was a wonderful project, and I'm so glad that we were here at this point in time because it was just by luck that we were here on this day that we were able to attend. And
that was Act 1.
And that was just Act 1.
Act 2 was more of a narrative. Actually, it started with sort of a pageant parade.
Yes.
That I think was there is a place called St. Agnes, and they put on a pageant festival every year.
Yes.
Using large oversized puppets.
We'll post
if you're North American, it's like bread and circus type theater.
Yes, that's exactly.
So they paraded those characters across the stage, but then there was.
In fact, Craig, they're called the St. Agnes pageant puppets.
There you go. And then there was after that. Then there was a show that was a little more narrative based. but it was also community driven. And it encompassed performers from, there were a few of the young kids that were in it.
Yeah,
like the 7-year-olds, all the way up to like senior
adults.
Citizens.
Yeah, well, yeah, very much community driven. So there were who was involved with that, and also it was obviously a project within all different media, because we had the Cornish Symphonia, because they did the instrumentation.
There's the opera.
The new Cornwall Opera soloists and chorus, which had I think it was new music for
sure.
on the myth and the legend of the Giant Bolster, and then a place called the Duchy Ballet. So we're telling this story, and then there was also a narrator, but only in the briefest sense. He was just basically setting up each section.
Yeah, he was there just to move us to the next piece. Yeah,
and it was and then this story was told with dance and opera and
it was really neat how the opera was done too. I thought so the orchestra was on stage on stage right. The choristers were upstage left. And then the performers were in the front of the stage, and these singers, they stayed where they were and they sung the roles of the show. But then downstage, the actual characters were dancing and basically miming what they were doing in their scenes. I thought that was a neat way of incorporating opera and dance.
Yeah, just sort of melding it all together, and very enjoyable.
Oh, yeah, I loved it.
It was a really, when I think about, when we think about some of the other theater that we've seen, all the theater that we've seen has been inherently British, I think, from the comedy of that Tommy... Yeah,
being Tommy Cooper.
Tommy Cooper, to the farce that we saw. But this was just it was a singular experience. It's come and gone. It's over. But I love that we were able to see something based on a local legend, see something that was done, that was community driven, and that really had an education bent to it. That was again very quite inspiring. And
for me, it was a summary of everything that the roots of theater really are, which is a community of people gathering to share a story.
Yeah.
And I thought that you sometimes, I sometimes forget that for sure, that's really what the root of it all is.
Well, you get to this whole notion of that perfect performance. Everything's got to be perfect, and that it sometimes gets a bit robotic and cold.
And there's a lot of community theater too that's really just trying to reproduce some other show that's not really their story. And this really brought home to me what community theater and regional theater really is and should be about. And
there's some community theater that you see that they just miss the mark, and it's really a lack of it comes across as lazy. Whereas this, when mistakes were made, it just really just showed how much of a community these groups were, because it wasn't laziness. It was they were just trying so hard to work together.
All right. Is that it?
I think that's it.
That was the Giant Bolster. The legend continues. A show you will never see.
A show you will never see. But what I hope that you're getting from this is just really, sometimes we need to step away from narrative. And sometimes that we, particularly those of us who work in education, we need to let whatever happens on stage happen and let the students figure it out for themselves and let them work together to figure it out for themselves. And maybe we need to be a little less robotic perfect and a little bit more just letting the moment happen on stage, because that's what theater is too.
Yeah.
Letting the moment happen.
Yep. Theater is moments to moments to moments.